responsibility for your actions, unless you don't have to.
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Karen.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it.
I gotta barbecue your ass, you molasses!
That's great psychology. Why don't you just say something bad about my mother?
Once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
Just the facts, ma'am.
The sportos and motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, dickheads, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Am I getting through to you? Over!
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it.
Just follow the money.
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Karen.
That was really cool, by the way.
Just looking around here, I can tell you're a genuinely dirty person.
I never realized how much my advice could hurt people until my advice hurt me.
River.
Shut up and never say anything again as long as you live.
This is my sister. You can all have her. I hear she's very good. All right? Stop right there, and I'll bring back the sun.
That was really cool, by the way.
Did you hear that? Yeah. It's a dick fur. What's a dick fur? To pee with.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat a-hole?
Well, hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day. Hope you're having a nice afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. We're spread out all over the world. We are mega worldwide every time we're on the air right now. Of course, checking right now to see the audio is all right, and I look okay. I think the camera work today is getting a little bit better. If only because we now have our dummy battery. Thank you, patrons. You are now why we're using the A5100 as our main camera. So thank you, thank you very much. Thank you. With all the class I can muster, thank you. So it looks pretty good. It looks like it's holding up pretty well. We'll see if it overtaxes my computer and makes the video all choppy, which is entirely possible. I literally just got it, so I sprayed the box with Lysol and pulled the whole thing apart and then slammed it in there and hooked it up. So I may be pushing it a little too far today. But hey, I mean, that's the kind of... this is the Sony A5100. I read a lot about it as far as streaming goes. It's got a lot of limitations as a regular camera and a lot of limitations as a vlogging camera, apparently. But it's really good for streaming in that it has a clean HDMI out and a really nice lens, and it's not very big, which is really helpful when it's mounted on your desk all the time. I have my Canon Rebel T5i, which I've had for a very long time, that I was attempting to do that with, and if you'll recall, that's the one that shut off all the time. Had to be turned back on every day. It looked beautiful, great lens, good camera, but it doesn't stay on for more than 30 minutes at a time because it goes into rest. We will see how this guy lasts. And, thanks, Cosmic Rose. That was really fun. The Chiaspora show was a good time. Welcome. The president did not do a full gaggle today, but he did meet with the governor of Colorado and North Dakota in the White House, sans masks, bragging about. And so I have the post-gathering Q&A of that, in theory, anyways. Jesus, like, Mike seems very hot, but in a good way, almost, possibly. Let's see. Yeah, all right, that seems... Because I feel like if I get really excited, it's gonna bite me in the ass later. It just feels that, yeah. So thank you, Natalie. Hot dog with ketchup. A hot dog with ketchup. See that, boys? My kid is as smart as a whip. Look at that. Sourcing the things through another speaker, so it's not quite as... doesn't blow my eardrums off, but I can still hear it. I've got plans. I got plans for you guys. It's good stuff. It is not Chicago style, no. You know what hot dog with ketchup reminds me of? Anybody ever see Sudden Impact? Probably the second best known Dirty Harry movie, since it had "Go Ahead, Make My Day" in it. There's a great little exchange between him and one of the other cops where he goes, "Don't tell me this is getting to you, Harry." No, it's not getting to me. Old ladies getting bashed in the head for their rent checks. Teachers getting thrown out of third-floor windows because they don't give A's. No, that doesn't bother me at all. But you know what does get to me? What? You know what drives me crazy? What? Watching you stuff your face with those hot dogs. Nobody, I mean nobody, puts ketchup on a hot dog. It's one of the better dialogue exchanges in Dirty Harry history, and it gets completely glossed over. By the way, if there is a Me Too anthem movie greater than Sudden Impact, I'm all ears. For everybody who thinks that kind of movement was just birthed recently, understand that they were trying to jumpstart it in the Dirty Harry world in 1983? When was that? So yeah, that's and I like my cousin. I used to quote that movie all the time, and not just the "Go ahead, make my day." This is the 44 Automag, and when used, when it's used properly, it can remove the fingerprints. By the way, for those of you that don't understand the racial arc of justice in Dirty Harry movies, the guy who's on the receiving end of the first Dirty Harry monologue where he goes, "I know what you're thinking, punk. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? That actor plays his best friend, Horace, in Sudden Impact, and is basically his partner. So there you go. Yeah, 83. So, and that guy was in every single Dirty Harry movie, and Carl and I have talked about this before, but he plays his best friend in that. And I'm pretty sure Dirty Harry's the only film cop I've ever seen who had a black doctor the entire run. Thomas Rosales, yes. So there you go. So there's your, for people who aren't keeping up. because the first Dirty Harry ruined his career otherwise. No, he wasn't no, not at all. He did a bunch of other stuff too. He just always had a role in those movies. There was also another cop that was in there who changed roles like twice. He was a police character, and then he played a criminal, and then he went back to being a police character. That wasn't completely unheard of back then. It was like watching Columbo. Dick Van Dyke and Robert Culp both played multiple villains and in some cases heroes. It was like an old theater group. You'd watch them just to see what they could do. They weren't as branded as we are today. Anyways, okay, so let's get rolling. Enough of this. His first movie was the one that was based on the Zodiac Killer. Yes, that's true. Yep. It was also a movie about society's frustration with Miranda. That was I'm a big fan of societal reaction movies, like Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run are both reactions to the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit being implemented in the United States. The first Dirty Harry movie is about the institution of Miranda and reading people their rights, and the kind of blowback aspect of that being manipulated by the criminal element at the time. That while it protected innocent people, the villains learned how to use it for their benefit, and that was. It was like a cautionary tale about that. So interestingly enough, and if you look at I think the one, he kind of like shoots the guy as he's escaping, which is he's told him to stop and all that. So if you watch the script, it's actually by a hair's breadth, it's all legal in how Harry does it, with the exception of, I think, stepping on the guy's leg when he's bleeding already, because he won't tell him where this 15-year-old, I think she's 14-year-old girl is buried alive. But then the follow-up at the end, like he's by the rules, and the guy lurches for the gun right before he gets shot, so they lets him on. It's kind of like in, I don't know if we ever did a count, but I don't know how many people Jean-Claude Van Damme kicked into an open circuit breaker. That used to be the one way you could die, where the hero, it was like a have your cake and eat it too moment that I used to love in 80s action movies. So you don't want to make the good guy a killer, because you're still trying to establish that standard. But at the same time, all he does is kick him. He's kicked him a bunch of times. Just this time, he smacks right into an open electrical conduit line or something, or an electric fence or something, and gets killed. or onto something. That was a big thing too. Like, just how much you'd see like some sort of spike sticking out of the floor as they walk in early in the fights, and you're like, dude's gonna land on that. He's totally gonna land on that. That's going through somebody's abdomen. You could just tell. Trekkers would also recognize Andrew Robinson Garrick, who plays the villain in Dirty Harry. Yeah, he's also the jerk cop Monty in Cobra. I don't agree with them bringing on here. I just want you to know that nobody asked you money. That guy. I love that guy. So, anyways, thank you guys, or the patrons, for our camera setup. It's fantastic. I will make sure that now today, if the video is choppy a little bit, that's up to me to fix kind of what I need to remove to make the computer run smoothly. It's very hot because I've been playing with it all morning, so it hasn't cooled off. I think I need to put an ice pack under this thing. Hey, Moto. So yes, he is in Hellraiser. That's right. Yes, I'm a big fan of Clint's spaghetti westerns. I was with him all the way up to the moment he talked to the chair. The irony of the sort of SJW aspect of the Dirty Harry movies that is not understood and respected. So I couldn't get you on YouTube. I should be on YouTube right now, aren't I? Am I not up on YouTube, guys? I think I am. I see a bunch of folks in there. So it might be a different link or something like that. You have to go to the page. The A51, how good you keep charged. It's got a dummy battery. That's what I was waiting for. So that's also from you guys, live from the Discord chat. That's right. Discord chat is open and running. That's fantastic. and you guys are already talking about Alfredo sauce recipes in there. So and geography, which I think is a good mix. Okay, so we're obviously gonna be dealing with his thoughts on Flynn and Biden and all that stuff. Now, let me be really clear up front that, and in case you're within the sound of my voice, or you're seeing this live, or you're seeing it later, and you stumble across a situation in your life where you might be placing calls to, I don't know, a criminal or a drug dealer or a serial killer or a violent felon or a spy or someone trafficking in blood diamonds, and you call them once because you'd missed dial. Not a big deal, and I don't think you should have to worry about it. After that, the second, third time, your name's going to show up on a spreadsheet at the FBI or the CIA, or whether it's here or overseas. And then after you do it about 150 times in a 1 month period, they're gonna look up who you are. Just for the record, just in case you're confused about how that works, how wiretaps work, that they don't actually have to wiretap you. If you call Captain Awful 1,000 times, or 100 times really, from your personal phone number, and Captain Awful calls you back, and then you return their phone call, and then you guys text or send emails to each other, eventually the authorities who are looking at Captain Awful are going to have every right to look at you. See how that works? See how you don't, just because they don't have a warrant for you, doesn't mean you don't legally get trapped in that net, because you're not just a random caller anymore. Now, if the CIA is looking into a foreign threat, and you're in contact with that foreign threat as a U.S. citizen, because of how the law is broken down and the protections therein for calling from here to overseas and back, and how we don't trust foreign switchboards, and maybe you're calling some Indian cell phone number, and there's 1.3 billion Indian cell phone numbers, and the way they route that stuff through, we can't, you could be innocently charged with calling the wrong nuclear weapon trafficker. There's a special court process you have to go through for them to go, hey, we need to look at this person's name and see who they really are. We see their number come up a bunch, but we need to backtrack and see who they are, because they keep calling this person who is trafficking in nuclear arms or is responsible for some mass graves in Nigeria or all of the above. And we're a bit concerned that they live in the United States and they're calling from the United States, so they're here, and that's kind of scary and sketchy. That's a little worrisome for us. So, Judge, we'd like to take a look at who they are. And so you get a FISA warrant, or you go through the unmasking process with the NSA. Now, the NSA has certain privileges because of the Patriot Act, which I know everyone has mixed feelings about, but the Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump right now are in the process of trying to expand to the point where they don't even need this protection anymore, but they're howling about how supposedly the Obama administration actually used this process legally. They just want to do away with it entirely. So if you do that, if you call Captain Awful a bunch of times, and Captain Awful works for Vladimir Putin, or works for the violent leader of a drug cartel, or a Turkish oligarch who's murdered a bunch of people, eventually they're going to start looking at you because that person uses people. Now, there's two ways that can shake out, just for the record. You could be calling this person a lot, and you could be suckered by a spy. All right. Thanks for subscribing. You could be suckered into thinking the number you're calling is legit. Perhaps this prince in Nigeria actually did find a $5 million legal settlement, and that he needs you to deposit money in his account so he can deposit it into his, and it's just a long legal process. Perhaps that is true. Perhaps that's a possibility. Maybe you're a sap, in which case you'll get a door knock. You'll get a, "Hi, sap, we need to talk to you for a minute because you keep talking to someone who keeps stealing stuff or killing people, and we're concerned that you might be participating in this unawares. You might not realize." Like, the example I give is the director of Queer as Folk's pilot and a bunch of other episodes, Russell Mulcahy, at one point was living in London, and he's Australian, if you don't know that, and he was living in London, and he got a knock on his door from the bobbies. The police showed up his door, and they go, "Oi, you Russell Mulcahy?" And he goes, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "Yeah, does, I forget what the guy's name is, but I'll just grab a name out of the air. Does Jared Kushner live here?" It's not him. It's the, different Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner. Does that fella live here? And he goes, "Oh, yeah, he's my boyfriend." He goes, "Yeah, well, we've been following him for a long time, and it turns out he's murdered a bunch of people. He's killed like 8 people, and we recognize he's your boyfriend, but, and we've been following him long enough to know that you haven't been helping him because we've been watching your house for weeks. And we'd like you to come with us and go hide over here because he's on his way home and we're going to arrest him for murder." That's a true story. I don't know what the guy's name was, I forget. But Russell Mulcahy was dating a serial killer for a while. And when the police, it led the police to Russell's house because that's where the guy was living. Okay? So if you sleep with serial killers and you call them all the time, oh, did it get blurry when I lean forward? Oh, because it's locked in. It's kind of impressive though. It's like realistic. All right. If you're sleeping with a serial killer, the police will go through 2 possible options. You're a sap or you're involved. Right? That's the thing. Either way, they kind of need to know who you are. Because if you're a sap, you're about to become an innocent victim. And if you're involved, you need to go to jail. No, it's not the guy from Lab Rats. It was the director of Queer as Folk. So in the case of Mike Flynn, for example, Mike Flynn made tons of calls to Russian connections and people in Turkey, both working as an unregistered lobbyist and someone who was in a position to give national secrets to someone he was directly being paid by, which is what we commonly call spying. And when you do that, when you're in the incoming national security director, and if you look at this thing that was released today, November 13th, I think, is the day of the unmasking. This is after the election. They didn't do this in the lead up to the election. They did this after the election when he was being installed as NSA. And it was abundantly clear that, like, is he the one making those phone calls? Because it sounds like what he's saying in the press, we're hearing in those phone calls. So we're going to need to know. And when they looked, that's exactly what they found. Mike Flynn playing footsie with the Russians and the Turks and getting paid for at least one, if not both. And then when they brought him in, he lied about it because they knew he was going to lie about it. And then they'd get him on the lie, and then he would, like they do in every leverage situation where they don't want you, they want your boss. They start using that as a manipulation point because you're a liar and a spy. That's expect that in your life if you start doing that. So, yeah. So, anyways, I would like just to catch you up on that part of it, just so you're aware. That's how this plays out sometimes. Okay. And so, if you're inclined to start calling oligarchs from Russia or serial murderers or anybody like that, and you call them again and again, don't be shocked when you get attention from the authorities. And during that attention-getting process, if they start looking into you on a grand jury level, essentially, like looking at your bank records, looking at your travel records, looking at your phone records, because you are in constant contact with someone who means the earth ill. You get me? Okay, super. I just think it's important that you guys can. So yeah. So this is as
Appreciate
live.
all the support you're giving.
I don't know why they pop in the middle of this. By the way, your guess is as good as mine, but they certainly do.
Us and the leadership of our governors.
Exactly. It's been, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're here for, to do that and to.
Why he's being lit from above? His hair looks like straw. It's very weird.
Talk about. We just came out with a new listing on testing. We just cracked 10 million tests, which is here.
Yeah, the Chinese, by the end of the month, will be testing 1 million people a day, just in Wuhan.
I think you'd like to show that to everybody. 10 million. We set an all-time record by far. If you look down here, these are.
If you look at the rest of my prop, you'll see that all these other countries with 1/6 our population. Thank you.
There are other countries that have not done anywhere near what we're doing.
Yeah, because they don't have to, because they added contact tracing and surveillance, and got people, and the people who actually got it are legitimately quarantining. By the way, this isn't every day. I don't know how many times we have to friggin' say this. We're not at 10 million a day. He thinks we're at 10 million a day. Honest to God.
Double, if you add them up and double them, we've done more tests, but I
yeah, that's true of their populations as well.
Can't get the press to print that, unfortunately. They just don't want to print it.
Since March, March 15th? That's how many tests we've done?
But I want to thank the governors for being here very much.
Honestly, his head looks like a bird's nest. Super weird.
We appreciate it. We're going to have some good, fruitful talks about going even to the next step. And I know you try.
What's the next step? You don't think North Dakota and Colorado are just blowing the doors off?
Trying to open up, and I know you're opening up. You're sort of more than trying. You're opening up, and you're both doing an excellent job. And it's an honor to have you at the White House.
How do you know they're doing an excellent job? They just opened up 2 days ago. Other than you, that's all you need for them to be doing an excellent job.
Yes, very much. And these two gentlemen have done a fantastic job. And David, you know, from Interior, and David's very much involved with the estates and.
With the estates.
How are they doing, David? What do you think?
Fantastic.
I think so. They're doing a good job. They really are. They're doing a good job. We're talking about, as you know, Space Force.
Yeah, because that's what I think about Colorado and North Dakota. Space Force. Unless, all you conspiracy theory fans out there are excited by the idea that Space Force would be run out of NORAD. And some sort of weird, hollowed out mountaintop like the Red Skull in Colorado.
The states are interested in Space Force, and we're.
Yeah, North Dakota and Colorado. Those are two states you want to you want to take off rockets from. Cities with high altitude, the mountains are closer to space, so you should just take off. You use less fuel if you drive from there. It's like coasting to space. And then North Dakota, where we literally have, they actually had contingency plans in North Dakota for nuclear missile launches in case they happened at the time that there were tornadoes. Yeah, that's good.
Talking to some of them, and I know that Colorado is very interested in it, and so we'll be talking to you about that too, okay?
They're going to basically build a mountaintop launch point, and then, not near a coast, not near an equator, not near water where stuff could land if it goes south. Maybe they could just land on a mountaintop. We could put snowboards on the bottom of all the astronauts.
We might mention that today a little bit during our meeting. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, what's your advice
Oh, he's trying to run them out, and then they got questions in.
to administrators and school principals around the country in terms of their plans to reopen school and colleges in the fall?
Oh, I think they should open the schools, absolutely. I think they should, and it's had very little impact on young people. And I think that if you're an instructor, if you're a teacher, a professor, and you're over...
As long as those young people live alone and come in no contact with anyone in any group that they might or might not know is in a comorbidity group or in an age range that might kill them, as long as those kids basically go to class, only see people their own age, that don't have immunodeficiencies or any hidden abnormalities in their genetic code that might make them more susceptible to this disease, and then never see their parents during their time they're in college up until they graduate, if there's a vaccine first. Yeah.
For a certain age, like let's say 65, or maybe even if you want to be conservative, 60, perhaps...
Yeah, there's a lot of conservative 60-year-olds.
You want to stay out for a little while longer. But I think you should absolutely open the schools. Our country's got to get back, and it's got to get back as soon as possible.
Yeah, the as possible part should factor in how many people get killed.
And I don't consider our country coming back if the schools are closed. And
Why? Why wouldn't... Is coming back predicated on a time scale that supersedes whether or not it's safe? I don't consider it hockey unless you're skating on thin ice.
It's had very little,
I don't understand why all hockey isn't played on a pond just as spring starts to break.
unusual situation. It's had very little impact on young people.
Except for the 100 kids in New York State alone who've died of or getting sick from a bizarre inflammatory disease, this blue rash that goes over their entire body. Yeah, besides that?
And I would strongly say they should open. It's up to the governors. It's the governor's choice. But their state is not open if the schools aren't open.
Why not? Why would you not find ways around that or try to deliver education in a way that slowly meets those standards so that everyone is safe, so the kids aren't meeting and mingling, carrying the disease back? Never mind.
So again...
Oh, as long as those kids don't have any jobs where they're anyone around them also. If you're working your way through college or university...
Very little impact on young people, and I think they should open their schools.
Mr. President, Senator Graham is introducing a bill to sanction China. Would you support it if it goes to the House and it comes to your desk? Do you support that bill?
Well, I respect Lindsey Graham, and I'll certainly look at it. The bill to sanction China, so I'll certainly take a look at it. I have not...
This is the first he's heard of it. That's how close they are.
Do you want to comment on the release of those names related to...
Well, the unmasking is a massive... it's a massive...
The NSA has a process for it. It's part of the Patriot Act. You could say that the ability to do that in the Patriot Act is worrisome from a surveillance state point of view, and you might want to curtail those and make sure it's not misused. But you're actually in the process with Mitch McConnell of arguing that it should be more relaxed, and you shouldn't even have to go through the process. Meanwhile, if you'll notice the tweet I just put up about the scoop of these documents, you'll notice that all the people who received the unmasked material had clearance to do so and went through the standard NSA protocol to do so, and it was cleared by a judge. But, there's so much, let me talk about what a big deal it is while I just fart out the top of my head and pretend I'm saying meaningful things.
I just got a list. It's who can believe a thing like this?
You mean the bullshit's coming out of your mouth right now, or just the reality of if Mike Flynn calls the Russians a bunch and the Turks a bunch and then lies about it, that's the kind of thing you would want broomed from your government?
And I watched Biden yesterday on Good Morning America being interviewed by one of your colleagues, George Stephanopoulos, and he said he knew nothing about anything. He has no idea. He knows nothing about anything.
That's not what he said.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. All right,
And then it gets released today that he was a big unmasker.
A big unmasker. You mean he was in the chain of command of people that could be approved, and not everybody who was in that list got stuff off that list, but he was just one of the people who would qualify for being able to look at? You mean like that? By being vice president? All right.
So how do you know nothing if you're one of the unmaskers?
He's not. He has the right to do it. He's in the people who are cleared to do it under the NSA rules. That doesn't mean he actually did it. This is like you have the ability to launch nukes, but you don't get credit for Truman doing it, or Obama doesn't get blame if you do it. See how that works? Can and should and could and did. Do you understand that those words have some meaning?
It's one of the very big stories.
No, it isn't. Well, it's one of the big stories. It is a story. Keep telling yourself that story. It's adorable.
I suspect you'll have, if it's possible, even bigger stories coming out.
It's not. Yeah, it's definitely possible to have bigger stories coming out because this is a fart burger.
And could I follow up on a separate subject?
I was in the wrong sound system.
We have explosions in Afghanistan. Are you concerned that that peace deal may be falling apart?
What peace deal is the answer?
Look, Afghanistan, we've been there for many years. We're like a police force. We're not fighting in Afghanistan. We're a police force in Afghanistan. And
by the way, this is how he would talk about the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. It was a big deal, and it was he made this deal and he created this thing, and he's the only person who could have done it, and it's perfect, and nobody else can do anywhere close to the business he was able to do. And then as soon as it flat tails, Atlantic City's a dead spot, and nobody ever needs to be there, and this is dumb.
At some point, they're going to have to be able to take care of their country. They're going to have to be able to police their country. But we're not meant to be a police force. We're meant to be fighters, and
Yeah, you see, if the Taliban is able to take over the places we have, not only do they have access to strategic facilities that we built while we were there, but they can also do something with the entire society that would align it with the more draconian groups in, say, Iran, and take an enormous part of the Middle East and turn it into a weaponized terror facility. So it's why we care. We're not there to police their country necessarily. We're in coordination with other forces. We're not alone there. You do realize, we should get out, but it takes a process instead of, screw it, they didn't like my deal, so I'm going home.
we've been there for a long time. So I don't know. We'll have to see it. I have not heard that, Steve. We have had
you haven't heard about the bombings, and you haven't heard about the Taliban forces going into the maternity clinic and killing babies? You haven't heard that part? You haven't heard it. Whether you believe it or not, post Kuwait and Iraq stories, that's another conversation. Have you heard it? I'm guessing not, since you oddly are okay with this, reverse Phil Collins lighting.
in Kabul, we've had.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, Donna. And Debbie,
some. I understand some pretty big blow-ups. But
some pretty big blow-ups. Thanks, man.
Again, you count on a government to be able to police themselves, and
no, you don't count on them to be able to do it. They're a nearly failed state. That's the point. We're trying to help them get on their feet because we rolled in there to get rid of the terror forces that had taken over the southern part of their country, and in retaliation for 9/11. And since we were in there, we kind of blew a bunch of stuff up. And you can't just blow it up and leave, because the people who will take over don't care if they're growing a country out of blown up stuff. They'll just murder everybody. And so you kind of have a responsibility to follow up. Never mind. I don't.
They're having a hard time, I suspect.
I suspect. They had a bunch of blow-ups, and they're having a hard time, I suspect.
But again, we are the greatest fighting force in the world. We're not a police force that's going to stay around and police.
We're a space force.
The streets and check out the red lights and traffic. It's not.
We're not doing traffic in Afghanistan. What are you, high?
Not what we're supposed to be doing. Been there a long time. Our force is down quite a bit, as you know. We're way down. And a lot of people have come back, brought them back. But the government.
Yeah. And the Obama administration was doing a drawdown. You were against it when they were doing it. Why are you for it now?
The government has to be able at some point to do something for themselves. Okay?
Mr. President,
Chairman Powell today said both that he wasn't interested in bringing interest rates negative and that he saw a need for additional stimulus from Congress. Yeah. I know that you said we could wait and see on the stimulus.
Literally, I don't know what's up with his hair right now. I think this is just the evangelicals have chosen as lighting.
Listen, that you want negative rates, so I was wondering your reaction.
Well, I'm a believer in negative rates only if other countries that are competitors, look, Germany, they're an ally, they're friends of ours, but they're still competitors on trade and other things. So,
you know who gets negative rates? You at Deutsche Bank, because you know, I would consider it if you got a loan for $600 million and then sued not to have to pay any of it back.
Germany, Japan, others have negative rates, and I think if they do, we're the most prime of the world. You know, it's based, many countries based on the dollar. The dollar is by far the strongest, most powerful currency in the world. We've made it more powerful, we've made it stronger, and certainly if they're going to have the advantage of negative rates, we should too. I feel.
But that's what drives the value of the dollar down. That's why those other countries' currencies aren't as valuable, because they go negative. See, one of the reasons why we've maintained the strength in our currency and why it's worth something is because we don't have negative rates ever. You can count on it as it's not a, oh my God.
Strongly we should have negative rates. Negative rates is basically...
So you can pay off the debts you've accrued for nothing. That's why he wants negative rates, because he ran up double Obama's deficit in a year.
Where they pay you interest if you borrow money. This is a new one. I've been looking for something like that all my life. That's a...
Yeah, it's a farce. It's ridiculous. What kind of an asshole does that? How does that lead to a strong economy and a strong dollar?
Pretty good one. But certainly...
If you're a small country, it's good for subterfuge. It doesn't have any value if you want your dollar to be worth a damn.
If other countries are going to be paid for putting out money, I mean, think of it, they're borrowing money, and instead of paying interest, they're getting paid. It's the craziest thing, but you know what? Other countries are doing it. Look at...
Yeah, small countries that we don't rely on them for their money. Like we don't give a shit. Like their exchange rate is based on the euro even. That balances out from the euro. If they overdo it, the European Union pushes back on it.
Germany, look at Japan, look at others, and we're the most prime in the world right now. And we have the currency, and we have the power of the dollar. So
why not undermine the power of that dollar?
I know that the chairman he's done a very good job over the last couple of months. I have to tell you that because
yeah, you have to tell you that because he dropped the interest rates to 0.25.
Been critical, but in many ways I call him my MIP. Do you know what an MIP is? Most Improved Player.
Oh my God, this is the Little League presidency. Did you give him a little trophy? Did he get a little one of those like curly Q metal trophies with the little plastic dude on it?
It's called the Most Improved Player Award. Did you ever get one of them when you were playing baseball, Corey? Good baseball
Certainly
player?
not.
Guy tries to make a personally, like a self-deprecating joke, and Trump can't even register it.
The chairman,
It's not about him, so...
my MIP right now for the last few months. I think he's done a very good job. I disagree with him on one thing now, and that's negative rates. And only because we're paying zero. Good news, with this money you're talking about and the stimulus, we're paying zero. We're down to zero interest. That's good. But some countries and some states, rather, and some also countries you look at, but we are paying right now zero, and other countries are paying less than that, if you can believe it. They're receiving money. And I think we should be in the exact...
That's because if you buy their debt, they will pay you to hold on to your money so other countries can't get it back. So if you're an oligarch in Russia, for example, and you want to hide your money in Germany, you pay them to keep a hold on it. You put it in bonds and debt like that, and then they'll, you're basically paying them a storage fee. That's what that is. But who the hell's going to loan us $6.4 trillion? We're borrowing this from the Medicare or the Social Security Trust Fund largely anyways, and that money's, we're just not going to pay ourselves interest on it?
Same.
If it gets paid back?
Situations. And by the way, states are getting tremendous deals in borrowing. So a lot of the states that are coming to the federal government, they can go out and they can borrow, and they're getting phenomenal rates. Some of our states is what I'm talking about.
As opposed to, what do you mean? As opposed to Germany's states?
They're getting phenomenal borrowing rates.
But you agree that stimulus should move forward? There's been some Republicans who suggest that they
I don't
should
know, it depends. It's certainly not the package that I saw today. Basically, if you look at that package, what they want more than anything else is it's a voting package. They want to be able to make sure that Republicans can't win an election by putting in all sorts of mailing ballots. Now, I don't know if you do because the press doesn't report this too much, but we had two very big victories last night. We won very big, Tom Tiffany won very big in the great state of Wisconsin. You saw
in a +8 Republican district.
that was last night it came in. That was a big one. You saw that, Doug? And won by a very, very substantial margin. And in California, of all places, we had a fantastic race, and this was all mail-in ballots. This was all
well, if it worked in your favor in this situation, what's the panic?
Mailed ballots. And when they saw, because it was mailed, they saw they were losing 3 days ago, and they end up putting polling booths into basically Democrat areas. But despite
I'm sorry, does that create more voters, or does that just let voters vote?
that, it's looking like Mike Garcia. I don't know if they've called the race yet, but he was substantially ahead. That's the problem with mail-in ballots. Are they going to dump?
What's the problem with mail-in ballots? If your two guys win and they're both available in those districts, what's the difference?
A whole pile of ballots on your desk just before the election. So
what do you mean? Yeah, ballots, human beings voting for the candidate of their choice, democracy. You know, the shit you hate.
The problem with the mail-in ballots, it's subject to tremendous corruption.
How?
Tremendous corruption.
How?
Cheating.
How?
And so I'm against it. And if you look at the bill that Nancy Pelosi is putting in, has a lot to do with elections, and then we're not going to lose elections because of that.
We're not going to let people vote.
And I do think you should mention the fact that the Republicans won 2 major congressional seats
in areas where they have tons of mail-in voting and they added polling places.
Last night. I think it's really worthy of mentioning.
Mr. President, do you believe that the judge presiding over the Mike Flynn case,
Well, let's
Emmett
finish
Sullivan,
with your question.
Okay.
Is that bill a non-starter? Is there anything in there you could support? Or?
Well, it's, as they say, DOA, right?
Okay.
DOA, dead on arrival.
Mr. President, do you
And of
believe
course, Nancy Pelosi knows that, obviously.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you believe that
Why does she know that? Why? Just because? Okay, let them run against you not letting people vote.
the judge presiding over the Michael Flynn case, Emmett Sullivan, ought to recuse himself or be disqualified for being biased against Mr. Flynn?
Why is it biased if you've seen the evidence and you've found the dude guilty and the guy's admitted to it? Why are you? How is it biased? Should the police who witnessed the person commit the crime, should they be accused as witnesses during the trial because they are biased because their eyes stored the images of my client killing someone?
I was just with General Milley and some other generals.
What does that have to do with whether the judge is seeing the truth about Mike Flynn or
And
not?
I asked them about General Flynn. Do you know him? They said, yes, sir, I've known him for 20 years. What do you think? He's an incredible man, an incredible soldier. He's an incredible general. This is General Milley, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 4-star. He's
your guy.
done fantastically.
Uh-huh.
He thinks General Flynn is a great, great gentleman and a real fighter. And when I see what...
So what's then why did he lie to the FBI in his estimation? Did you ask General Milley why he would lie to the FBI then? To protect you? Bone spurs?
Happening to him, it's disgraceful. And it was...
You mean working for you and then being incriminated by said work? Or the whole thing about acting as an agent of Turkey and not telling anyone?
It was all a ruse. And by the way, the FBI said...
A ruse. It was a ruse. It was a rabbit in a hat, the
he
whole
didn't
thing.
lie. The
Oh my
FBI
God.
said he did not lie. So with all this stuff, I mean...
No, he didn't. Why would you plead guilty if the FBI said you didn't lie? He said he lied to the FBI. The FBI said, yeah, he lied. And the judge said, did you lie to the FBI? And Mike Flynn said, yeah, I lied to the FBI. So you're admitting that you lied to the FBI? Yeah, I lied to the FBI. Did he lie to you guys? Oh, yeah, he lied to us. Flash forward to Trump. Look, the FBI said he didn't lie.
I'm hearing about lying. The FBI said he didn't lie, but the sleazebag said, well, we don't care what they say, we're saying he lied.
What sleazebag are you talking about? I mean, it's...
Okay, but the FBI, you remember when they left, they said he didn't lie.
Abolish the FBI. Yeah, that's a brilliant idea.
What they've done to that man and that family...
Yeah, you know what we need? We need more serial killers roaming the nation. That would help.
It's a disgrace. But I just tell you that because I just left General Milley and he said, a great man and a great soldier.
Would you consider a pardon for Mr. Flynn?
I won't talk about that, but he's going to be okay. He's going to be just fine.
What about the judge?
And I'm very, very...
Because he's going to get a job at Fox after all this is over?
Saddened by what's happening to General Flynn and others. I want to tell you right now.
He's going to get a payout. That's what you're saying.
And others. Please.
Dr. Fauci yesterday was a little cautious.
Thanks, Krista.
On reopening the economy too soon. Do you share his concerns?
About reopening what?
Reopening
the economy, the country. What do you mean about reopening what?
the economy too soon, some states.
Look, he wants to play all sides of the equation. I think we're going to have
all sides of the equation. No, he's pretty much focused on whether or not people are going to die.
a tremendous fourth quarter. I think we're going to have a transitional third quarter.
He's asking you about the safety of opening the economy.
And I think we're going to have a phenomenal next year. I feel that we are going to have a country that's ready to absolutely have one of its best years. Next year, with all of the stimulus and all of the fact that it's a pent-up demand like I haven't seen.
But that's not what he's asking.
And you see it right now. These two really professional, good governors that do such a, work so hard. I know both of them very well. One happens to be a Democrat, okay, but we've worked together, and I think we've worked together very well.
And if you say different, I'm going to cut off all the swabs that are supposed to be coming. Thank you, Natalie. And let's see, and who is that? I just saw another one. Thank you, Georgina.
And one, you would expect me to say that, but it happens to be true, okay? Really good job, too. But
why wouldn't we expect you to say that someone's doing a good job when they're doing a good job? Because we know that you're a transactional asshole?
We've worked very, very well together.
Thank you, Amber.
They want to get their states open. Some governors and some perhaps partisans, maybe for election reasons, don't want to have their states open. And then
partisan reasons, like they don't want their voters to die.
Some shouldn't open them quite yet. They're not ready. They went through a lot and they're not quite ready. But no, we're opening our country. People want...
Yeah, open the ones that are climbing. That's the smart move. Criminy.
Want it open.
Thank you, Amber.
Schools are going to be open. I was seeing the other day Purdue, great school, great college, university. And
what is it?
And Purdue is opening, and others are opening, and they're all announcing it. These are young people. These are students, young students. They're in great shape. They're in great shape. Now, will you have an incident, 1 out of 1,000,000, 1 out of 500? Will something happen? Perhaps. But, you can be driving to school and some bad things can happen too.
Yeah, car crashes aren't contagious.
So, no.
We also have seat belts and speed limits and roads, and we've painted lines down the... Thank you, Rebecca. Lines down the middle of the road. We have police literally watching to make sure people aren't speeding. We have stop signs and yield signs. The amount of shit we put up to try and lower the amount of traffic accidents, and they still are a massive cause of death. And this dude doesn't want any of those protections.
We're going to open our country.
Sorry,
we want it open.
When you say Dr.
Who's we?
Dr. Fauci is playing both.
What's open? Is open just random death just so you can get the economy flowing again?
Sides. Are you suggesting that
before the election? Because that's what that is.
The advice
Well,
he's giving to you is
I was
different.
surprised by his answer, actually, because...
I don't listen to science, and
You know,
I thought he was gone.
it's just, to me, it's not an acceptable answer, especially when it comes to schools. The only thing that would be acceptable, as I said, is professors, teachers, etc.
Yeah, the other people you need at a university.
Over a certain age, I think they ought to take it easy for another few weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, who knows, whatever it may be. But I think they have to be careful because...
So open the school without the teachers and bring the teachers in a month to 6 weeks later.
This is a disease that attacks age.
No, it doesn't.
It attacks health.
It attacks health. A disease that attacks health. When did that shit start?
And if you have a heart problem, if you have diabetes, if you're a certain age, it's certainly much more dangerous. But with the young children, I mean, and students, it's really, just take a look at the statistics. It's pretty amazing.
Why is it amazing?
You're not hearing what I'm saying.
Oh, that's okay, Doc, because you're not saying what I'm hearing.
Mr. President, businesses are concerned about getting sued once they reopen. Will you be insistent on some sort of shield from liability being in a phase 4 bill?
If anything's done, I would do that. And these are the new testing numbers, so you saw that. But
Trump equals Zionist. What the shit? Get out of here. Zionism. The hell's wrong with you people? Why don't you watch more random YouTube videos? How many zeitgeists are there? Quit it. Hold on.
I was just showing this to a group of people outside. We're now over 10 million tests.
Uh-huh. What is that per capita? Where are we on that list per capita? How about deaths? What about that statistic you said yesterday about us being, we in Germany were best in the world, when in fact we're behind 13 other states, and they're behind 7 of them. How about this? Canada is kicking the United States' ass as far as per capita deaths.
Will be very shortly, like within a couple of days. Look at that test.
Right.
This is us. This is the rest of the world. Okay? We have more tests and we have better tests, John.
No, we have 79 random tests. One of the reasons why people in the White House are sick is because you rushed the Abbott test, and it's got something like a 25% fail rate.
We have more tests and we have better tests. And we're going to have your football team in, your championship football team.
And they're going to bring them in, and we're going to cough all over them.
Right? And we were, and tell us a little bit about the team, first of all. You know, they won the championship, and we were all set to have them. And
then this place became a hotspot for a disease. It's like it would be stupid to bring them here. It's like bringing them to a meat packing plant in Iowa.
What happened is the plague came in, and because of the plague...
No, COVID-19 came in. The plague is a different disease altogether. You are not King David.
Came in from China, and because of the plague, we didn't have those great people. But we'll do a rain check, okay? But
actually, on your side of the country, the plague came in from Europe.
Seriously.
Over on our side of the country, it came in from China.
Even if it's in a few months, we'll do a rain check. Tell them about the team, because it was a tremendous season.
Well, let me guess. A game was played, a ball was passed back and forth. Their team was victorious.
Say that the team, and Senator Hoeven was here, Senator Kramer was here, the whole Quidel, but the First Lady was here. She says hi.
Yeah.
But you hosted them last year because they, again, won the national championship this year in January, and this is the 8th out of 9th year in a row they've done that, and they would love to get back here with the rain check.
So I watched the game on television, the championship game. I didn't know too much about it. I don't get to watch too much of the television football games, right?
Are you? Did someone explain the rules to you? Did you ask questions like, why don't they just punch people in the stands? Why don't they just throw the ball to the left and that way? Because it's, you know, the exit to the stadium is closer than the goal. Why don't you just walk away? Like if they don't give you the points, just get up and leave the table. Is there a table on the field? Where's the table?
And I'm saying, man.
The art of the deal of winning the coin toss.
That team was really good. They were
the art of the kickoff.
Really good. And then I got a call from Doug, and I get a call from John, and I get a call from our other very friendly senator, right? The 3 of them. And they said, do you think we could possibly honor the team? Because we honor the national champion. And my question was, How would your team do against the national champions? They were pretty good, LSU this year, right? Not a bad quarterback. Huh?
Yep.
Huh? I don't understand. They briefed me on this just before.
How do you think? I don't know. You think?
I don't know anything about this. I didn't know you guys had won. I didn't know how many times you'd won. They won 8 out of 9 years.
You think okay, right?
And then they won again.
We open up against Oregon next year at Oregon.
Wow.
So then we'll be able to answer your question.
That's pretty good.
And that great LSU quarterback started his career playing flag football in elementary school in Fargo, North Dakota. So that's where he got his start.
His dad coached him.
Got a good start.
Yeah, Burrow's dad coached him.
We'll let the team know we're going to do a rain check.
Yep.
Okay?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Great. So fascinating. That's welcome to Sports Talk with Donald Trump. That's right. Move over, ESPN.
Yeah.
What will happen to the public companies that don't return their PPP loans to the SBA
That
by
audio.
tomorrow's deadline?
Well, we'll go
That audio just dropped.
after that very seriously. Yeah.
That wasn't on my end. That's on
If
theirs.
there's any companies that got loans
Ready to
that they
go.
weren't entitled to, we'll go after them very
Censored?
soon. Not a bad quarterback because, and others.
Oh no.
Even if it's in a few months.
Huh. What's happening there? What's happening? How did that happen? What are you talking about?
We'll do a rain check. Tell them about the team because it was a
Oh, I'm
tremendous
here.
season.
You
Well,
guys are
just say that the team and Senator Hoven was here,
Check that
Senator
out.
Kramer was here, the whole Quidel, but the First Lady was here, she says hi.
Yeah.
But you hosted them last year because they, again, won the national championship this year in January, and this is the 8th out of 9th year in a row they've done that, and they would love to get back here with the rain check.
So I watched the game on television, the championship game. I didn't know too much about it. I don't get to watch too much of the television football games, right? And I'm saying, man, that team is really good. They were really
Sports
good.
Talk.
And then I got a call from Doug, and I get a call from John.
There.
I get a
My headphones went out.
call
That's what it was.
from
Thank you, Arlene. And no, we do not wish lightning to strike him. We do not wish violence on anyone on this show. But I appreciate the super chat. So, just for the record, we don't go there with anybody. Ever, ever, ever. Not on my show.
problems.
Here, hold on.
I get a call from our other very friendly senator, right? This
Oh my
way up?
God. I
Yeah,
can't.
by tomorrow's deadline.
Well, we'll go after them very seriously, yeah. If there's any companies that got loans that they weren't entitled to, we'll go after them very seriously. They'll have big problems.
Mr. President, what's your level of confidence that the Supreme Court will ultimately rule in your favor in the case involving your tax returns?
I already gave my tax returns. They're going to be available in a very... If the audit would just finish, I could just give them. I don't even know why we're fighting that. That part to me is amazing. Where did that go?
I hope they will. I mean, look, it's you have a situation where a president has to be able to focus on this, and you know.
Yeah, that's what it is. Focus.
When you're doing an audit, who would give?
Thanks, Debbie.
You know, in the old days, no president gave tax returns.
The old days? What do you mean, pre-1970?
A while ago, I mean, no president gave tax returns. But when you're under audit, who would want to give them?
You're not under audit.
It's a very big thing.
How long? You've been under audit for 5 years?
But it would also take time. It would take, and this.
No, you gave these to another organization as proof that you deserve a loan. Those aren't under audit. You gave those as proof.
People are going to get, ultimately, people are going to be getting returns. They're going to see that.
Ultimately? Ultimately. When? After you leave office?
But I think.
Yeah, we're going to have them by the end of the summer.
You know, I think it went very well yesterday. I thought it was, I have great respect for the Supreme Court.
Clearly you didn't listen.
And I think
it wasn't on television. It didn't have pictures, so.
the lawyers put out a
What is this like? What is this like, radio?
very strong case. And from what I've read, it was a very strong case. Yeah, please.
How long do you and the Vice President plan to stay apart?
How can I just let you walk away? Just let you live without a trace.
Well, it's an interesting question. I haven't seen Mike Pence,
He used to get me coffee. I don't really know him that well. He's probably a Democrat.
and I miss him. But he was in the room.
But he couldn't wait. It was weird because the minute they suggested being away from me, he was gone.
With somebody that tested positive, and he did not test positive.
Which is negative.
He tested the opposite.
The opposite of positive? What's that?
He's in good shape.
Yeah, he tested in good shape. Is that what it said on the test?
but-
Was it like there's like a plus and a minus and a in good shape?
I guess we said for a little while we'll stay apart because you don't know what happens with this very crazy.
How can I just let you walk away?
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President Mike Pence and his wonderful wife Karen.
Just let you leave without a trace. Good God, man.
And horrible disease. But we speak a lot on the phone.
That's sweet. Really? Are you laying on your bed like this with your phone and your feet crossed behind you? What are you doing? No, you hang up first. No, Mr. President, you hang up first. I love the sound of you hanging up on me. It makes me feel so dirty.
But
come on, Mike, do it. Hang up on the phone.
I'm in the White House. Mike is at his office, but he's pretty much away from people. He's doing a great job. He's done a great job, I think you'd say, on the task force.
By being away from people?
You've pretty much gotten everything you wanted, and we try and get it to you quickly.
Yeah, we talk to the Vice President regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, not you.
Yeah, they've done
We talk to the Vice President regularly. Pull back, guy wearing mask.
We've worked very.
That's the timing. Yeah, we talk to the Vice President all the time. That's why I know to wear a mask around you.
Well together with Republican governors. And
hey, Rob, thank you. What odds will you give me on the bet that Trump's tax returns given to the banks are different than the ones the IRS have? I'm going to go with 100%. I think I wouldn't give you odds on that. That'd have to be one to one. I would side with you on that bet.
And with Democrat governors. And when are you thinking of opening? And explain what you're going to do. Doug, I'm going to ask you.
Most businesses are open in Colorado.
We just peel your mask off with your hand, chit chat, and put it back on. Thanks, Rob Glenn. That's Rob Glenn. That's Rob Glenn. Thank you, Rob Glenn. Thank you, Rob Glenn.
Pretty much everything except for those social businesses like bars and nightclubs. A few places have restaurants.
Look at that. Pulls his mask off, fists it, and then, you heard me, and then he's going to put it back on his head.
The rest soon, but offices, manufacturing.
Dude, if you touched everything,
salons, pretty much all people are back in a safer way, right? It's not the same way it was.
Hi, Amy.
It's like if you go. I got my hair cut the other day.
Looks good.
Thank you. You should have seen it before. It was crazy. What little is left of it.
Not bad. Not bad.
So they wore a mask. I wore a mask. So we're doing it in a safe way. All the stores are back, and April 27th, we were one of the states where we wanted to do that in a safe way. People are being responsible. I mean, and it's that individual responsibility that's going to make sure that we can stay on this trajectory, and hopefully restaurants in May, by the end of May. I mean, they're already open in a few places in our state.
How about, because I go there, as you know, and the ski slopes are
do you?
Fantastic, right?
Oh, yeah. Please show footage of Trump skiing.
There are those that say the greatest anywhere. How?
Not you, because you have never been skiing.
What are you doing with the skiing? And it's a big business for you.
It's a big.
Yeah, it's
business. It's also
a big business for you. He's the governor.
Also, one of the reasons that we got a lot of the virus in our state, because people come from all over the world, all over the world.
I've heard that.
And so that's what.
I've heard that just now. I heard that when you said that. I heard this. Look at him holding his mask.
Led to the spread. And so most of the ski season is ending, but we're actually hopeful. We have a lot of people don't know this, but in Colorado we have a few areas that they're skiing through July 4th. And we're hoping that people will be able to ski again. David knows this, Secretary Bernhardt knows this, in Arapahoe Basin, Wolf Creek, maybe Breckenridge, Loveland in June. We're hoping that people can actually ski again.
And you also do a lot of summer business and springtime business, and what are you doing with that?
He's not a corporate executive. He's a governor. He actually has people in his state who want to stay alive.
We're really respecting the communities in our state because they have a lot at stake. Nobody is more at stake than in fact, Jill Ryan, who's with us from Eagle.
Thanks for hosting, Flang Doodle.
She's our Secretary of Health in Colorado.
She's wearing a mask, and she didn't take her mask off and hold it in her fist like an idiot.
Commissioner in Eagle County, which is where Vail is. Right. So they have the most at stake economically and from a health perspective. So, we're really respecting what the different communities decide. I think there'll be some folks that are coming back, spending money in stores. There'll be other communities that say, you know what, we have to wait a little bit longer, and it's been very traumatic for many of those communities because Eagle County, for a while, had the highest infection rate in the country early on. Yeah, early on.
I heard that from you just now.
And
so
now there's
they've
people
resolved
coming
it.
because everyone goes, everyone coming in.
Yeah.
I just heard
How has that been? How is the level of infection right now?
Eagle County's done an amazing job, as has Summit County, Pickens County, Aspen, you know, all those areas.
Because nobody's coming anymore.
They've gotten it under control because they acted.
Because there are no tourists.
Early, they have great county health departments. They look
It's spring and no one's skiing anymore.
at the science, they look at the data. Their residents stayed home. And in fact, Eagle County was one of
Some relatives in Colorado went to a rally a few years back with a sign, Trump skis in jeans.
the first in our state, along with Mesa County, which Secretary Bernhardt knows well, Grand Junction area, to be able to open up a little bit ahead of some of the other areas in a safer way, right? In a safer way.
Yeah.
So like in Grand Junction, the restaurants are
Can we get a better shot of him nodding?
25% capacity. So
his
there's
head.
space. We're looking at
This is like the guy in the back row at a metal show couldn't afford a good ticket. Just
ways that people can dine outdoors, sidewalks.
not committing to headbanging, but I'm just glad to be here.
And even on a lane of the road because it's safer to be in that environment. So those are the kinds of things that we think about as we're just trying to get back to as much normalcy as we can.
And Corey,
Yeah, you're not going to have winter business. You're a seasonal state that's not going to have any business till next winter, and you use the stimulus to finish out the season. That's what people are going to live off of. That's where all their loans went. That's where all the support went in Colorado. They were allowing home delivery for weed, so all the new businesses aren't getting hurt by this. Jesus.
are you working together very much? I know with the governor and everybody else.
We do. We speak regularly. The governor's done a good job, and I appreciate that, and here to help as much as we can.
One of the things we did that Corey introduced us to and worked on was importing some tests from South Korea. So we have.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, where did you get those tests from? You didn't get them from the government? I'm sorry, you didn't get them from the federal government? So you wouldn't really include the tests that you got on that list of the number of tests, or would you?
They're already being used in our state. We're also partnering with the vice president and you on some Thermo Fisher tests that I think are coming very soon. We're going.
Okay, so are those also counted on that 10 million list? The ones that are coming very soon?
I think 95,000.
I was told they're here and they're getting them very quickly.
Good, we're excited.
I've told that they exist and that they're happening. Can I buy a bobbing head Trump from my vehicle? Yes. But you can get one of all of his. They don't sell one of him. They just, unless there's you have to have a Putin one or its head doesn't bob. But if you buy any Republican bobblehead and you put it near Trump, its head just starts bobbing like that. Especially if you put it in his lap.
We're running through those tests from South Korea, but that's what's so important. It's the supplies, right? We have the ability to do it, the labs to do it. You guys sent around the labs. We have the capacity.
And then what?
But it's getting the tests in, and so both with the Thermo Fisher test, the Abbott test, the Solgent tests. We're mixing and matching across. We have 32 free community testing sites across our state. Some of them you drive in, some of them you walk in, but those are free, and that's in addition to the hospitals and doctors' offices.
Right.
Of course, you get tested there, but we have 32 free community testing sites in different
And you have
parts of our
good
state.
health care in that state.
And Mr. President, so I think
good health care in that state. What kind of sentence is that?
the key that Jared has talked about, the governor's talked about, is you have counties that have a plan that they're able to open up earlier than others because of the work that they're doing, and so.
Because they're tourist communities and they've been hiding for 6 weeks and all the tourists went home a long time ago, so they're basically small towns with no interaction with anybody else.
When the governor's talking about Grand Junction, you have restaurants that aren't just open, but you have dine-in in some of these restaurants, which I
because they're insular communities.
think is maybe some
stupid.
of the first around the country to actually reopen to dine-in.
Yeah, and as soon as 1 or 2 people come up there that have the disease, everyone in town will have it quickly.
Because of the good work that they have done together.
And then we wanted to, for our restaurants were open throughout this whole period in our state.
Right.
They just did delivery, they did takeout, they did curbside, and we even waived some of the laws so they could sell alcohol curbside and sell alcohol delivery because that extra piece can make the
drive-through alcohol service. We figured people were, if we wipe out some of those folks, anybody who would drink and drive during a pandemic, we figure if they die on the way home, that's one more person we don't have to intubate.
difference between them staying in business or not.
How do they do? How do those restaurants do with the takeout?
You'll hear from some that are doing okay with it. It doesn't work for every restaurant, and that's why they need to be open.
Yeah, tapas and sushi are having a rough time.
For the in-restaurant dining, but for many of them, it's paid their bills.
Yeah, I can't stop lying. I agree. How did Republicans not hear that this dude just they made a deal, and Cory Gardner is standing right there, sitting right there, and they're talking about how they had to make a deal to get tests from South Korea, and he doesn't bat an eye. And I guarantee the tests that are done in this country that they got from South Korea, he counts on his list of 10 million.
And they've gotten through it, and it's helped them. Not every restaurant, but I hear those stories that it's helped them get through it, that we've been able to make sure they've been able to stay in business the whole time.
And I think yesterday we talked
he was supposed to run all the press out of here, by the way, for this part of the conversation, but he either forgot or didn't.
about Colorado's additional Thermo Fisher test, and that'll be a very big help to get those.
That's a great test.
Yeah.
That's a new and a great test. So Doug, how about North Dakota? How you doing?
Well, first
How you doing over there in North Dakota? Well, first of all, we're not wearing masks like a bunch of wussies.
just leave.
I've got my real estate lady here. She's wearing pink on to celebrate North Dakota is open for business.
With gratitude and say thank you to you for your leadership and the Vice President, Dr. Burks, and the whole team.
So you got the script, the ass-kissing script. I'm glad to see that. Most people don't open the attachment, and they have to be told by Kellyanne Conway. She gets really upset.
It's been a great partnership.
Great.
Federal to state to local in North Dakota. And secondly, I wanted to say thanks to all the great people in North Dakota because...
yeah, 850,000 of them?
Like Jared in Colorado, I mean, we relied a lot on individual responsibility, light touch from government.
Yeah, in a state with fewer people than Santa Monica.
And had great results. And here we sit today, we're number 2 in the nation. We passed New York this week in terms of testing per capita.
Right.
Per capita.
So we've really driven in.
Yeah, because per capita, the rate, you're not doing per 100,000, are you? No, because you're doing just the capita of your state and the percentage of your state because it's a smaller thing because that's how exponential growth is. I
tested over 6%.
Yeah, North Dakota's beautiful, but it's sparse.
You're using different tests, all different, and you're in good shape with the testing. What tests are you using?
Well, this has all been the PCR, the nucleic acid testing, and it's been across a number of different platforms, Thermo Fisher, Abbott, Panther, and so we've got a variety of different platforms, but most of it driven through our state lab, which has had an order of magnitude increase. So we've gone to 3 shifts today, and each shift is doing more than 3 times they did before, so 10x increase going on.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad showing more sick people.
They're on the testing side. And then we're the 5th lowest positivity rate in the country. So we've been, Alaska and Hawaii are ahead of us, but we've been right at the bottom in terms of that. You take those 2 things together.
So what do you attribute that to?
Being a state with a population smaller than Louisville, Kentucky.
Well, I would say we very early on.
Being a good governor, right?
Well,
being a giant state with fewer people in it than the Las Vegas metro area.
It's, geography helps, and the
yeah, you mean the land between people?
People of the state help, those 2 things. But I'd say we took early action to try to.
Yeah, 762,000 people. There's 7 million in LA, in the LA region, the LA metro area, not just the county.
Reduce transmissible moments.
There's fewer people in Montana than there are in the San Fernando Valley by a factor of what, 7?
So we kept 93% of the jobs in the state open, but the 7%.
Yeah, because they're mostly loner jobs.
We closed in bars and restaurants and personal care businesses. Everybody else kept going. All of construction, all of energy, all of ag, including all of elective surgery at hospitals, kept that going.
Oh wow, that's
fantastic. We were able
that's amazing because in a state where there's fewer people, you have fewer people in your entire state than are serviced by the New York hospitals in 6 months.
We never ran. We were well stocked. We had a great medical cache and PPE.
Gee, it's almost like NORAD is
there. We never
there.
took more than 2% of our capacity in healthcare. We have a lot of great healthcare providers in North Dakota. Only 2% were going to COVID.
That's fantastic.
And so we were able to then drive through that. I mean, we handled the virus and really focused. So we got Michelle Comer here, who leads our Commerce Department. We have less to worry about.
Look at that. For Colorado brings his like Health and Human Services or whatever, his state health representative, he brings somebody from Commerce.
Opening up because we never really closed down, but on that other 7%, we got bars, restaurants, personal care businesses open on May 1st, and all that's going very well under new operating procedures that everybody's using to stay safe.
And your oil prices are going up a little bit now, so that you're $26, $27 a barrel. And pretty soon you'll be up to the number that you have to be up to. That's a big difference.
Well, absolutely, because I mean, what we do in North Dakota is we power the world and we feed the world. Number 2 oil producing state in the nation, and a lot of the unemployment that we saw early on wasn't related to the virus; it was related to the demand destruction associated with the oil price drop.
Great job.
Yeah, and the fact that you have 762,000 people. Are you counting those folks that come in and work as temporary workers who you just shovel out and don't count them if they get sick?
And what do you have to say about the state and the job the governor and everybody else has done? I know it well.
Yeah, listening to these two governors, and I was governor for a long time, tells me your approach is the right approach. You're working with the governors across this country and
it never pass up an opportunity to kiss Trump's ass.
empowering them to open up as soon as they can safely based on the conditions in their state, and every state's different. And that's why that approach is so important. And then you providing all that support along with us in Congress with the CARES Act.
Yeah, and South Korea providing all that support. And
as well. But you see that now with North Dakota, with Colorado.
With South Korea.
And across the country. So that's why it's so important that you're...
For the record, Ben Franklin is watching this and he's pissed. Look at him. Look at him right over there.
Doing it the way that you're doing it with these great...
By the way, 202 folks in here today, just watching on one channel alone. I appreciate that. Good to see you guys. Thanks for dropping in. I appreciate it.
Governors that we have across the state, so thank you for that. And the other thing I want to mention is for our farmers, I work a lot on ag.
Yes.
But for our
on ag.
Farmers and ranchers, you've been there for them and hang in there with them. They're doing a whale of a job, and they're so important, and our energy industry too.
And
they're doing a terrific job. It's great how we've got $50 billion out of China, and we paid them $68 billion out of taxpayer funds for the stuff that China also bought or isn't going to buy or hasn't bought yet. We haven't really figured it out. Phase 1.
Sending them billions of dollars of money that we took in from a country that targeted them. Last year we gave them $16 billion. The year before we gave them $12 billion. And no other president would have done that, I can tell you.
Why? And no other president would have started a tariff war that caused them to be under the gun like that. Like, you would have had other recourse. Other presidents would have set up things like TPP or attempted to outflank China instead of just getting into a face-off with them without any other recourse for where our farmers sell their own wares. Good God. What happened?
And it's really important and appreciated.
Thank you, Ann.
And we need to hang in there with them. And the only other thing I got to tell you is we have a great governor, as you know, but he is so...
No other fireman would have set fire to this building. Thanks. Look at that.
So data-driven that I was teasing Dr. Burks, who's more data-driven. These two are amazing. They're amazing together. You got to. They're just amazing.
That's great. Michelle, do you have anything to say?
Well, it's been a privilege to work for Governor Burgum. I think it's through his wisdom that, we've talked a lot about lowering the curve, but as Governor Burgum pointed out, we didn't close the state, so I feel like we raised the bottom, and we've had the good fortune.
What bottom? You were never on track to have it affect your capacity because of the vast amount of capacity versus the amount of people you have in the state.
To work very, very closely with our business community, and it's through that process and the open dialogue and the collaboration and the hyper-connectedness in our state that we were able to build our what we call North Dakota Smart Restart protocols.
I thought that bust was Jared. That's
with our business community over the span of about 8 days, and so we were closed for 40 days and 40 nights, and we are
it's straight up biblical.
We're opening in a safe way.
That's fantastic.
We're really proud of the work.
Literally, like that's by a bunch of these states, by the way, are doing the 40 days and 40 nights thing, where this is their wandering in the desert Old Testament moment, and this is Jesus allowing the doors to fly off.
Yeah, you've done a great job. Thank you very much. And just to finish off, go ahead.
Well, hi.
Whatever your name is.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the federal government for its partnership on our COVID-19 response.
And put your wadded up mask back on your face.
And particularly
Jesus, man.
The supplies you've given us, the tests, and look forward to that continuing. And the more people we can test.
That's leadership. Look at the person who isn't wearing a mask and take your mask off. As soon as you turn your neck, you go, oh shit, she's got a mask on, and put your mask back on. Leadership. And I'm proud to be an American.
And then we can force multiply that with contact tracing so we can quarantine people that haven't even had a test yet. That's really, the way that we're going to contain the virus in Colorado.
Why would you have to contact trace people who haven't had a test yet if everybody who wants a test can get one? And why would you contact trace and force quarantine on people who you have no reason to suspect would need a test?
We've got a local public health department that covers every county, and they are ready to do testing and contact tracing, and so that's our plan.
That's
They're ready? Are they ready? I'm ready. I'm ready to be a foot taller. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. See what I'm saying?
Be a statewide effort.
Well, thank you very much. Terrific job, too.
Great, so good. I'm glad that you're ready to be ready.
And while we're here, I want to also say Secretary Bernhardt doing a fantastic job.
Fantastic job.
We had a chance to interact with him on national parks. We got great things going on in the Theodore Roosevelt National Park as we move ahead with the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library.
That's right.
We've got the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, BLM. We've been great partners working with them.
We're setting up an oil well right in the middle of Teddy Roosevelt's museum.
The 5 tribal nations that are headquartered in North Dakota with whom we share geography, and we've done great collaboration with those tribal leaders on testing through COVID. But I just want to thank the Secretary.
They've had a lot of difficulty in the different tribes, haven't they?
They
a lot
have.
of difficulty.
And I
Tremendous
want to thank the Secretary.
Tremendous difficulty.
The BIA and for
Is that because they're less talented than everybody else?
all their support as well through all this.
David, you've done a great job. Do you feel comfortable with all those cameras right behind your head?
So, you gave me clear direction to work with governors to open things up. We work with local communities.
You are the wind beneath my wings.
Our parks, my goal is that we're right on the shoulder of the governor. We've worked with Larimer County and Health Department and Estes Park to bring that online. We've opened up Theodore Roosevelt, and we just announced today the timing of the opening for Yellowstone. So we're moving
So you're
forward.
getting those parks open, right?
Absolutely.
So I hope everybody's listening. The parks are opening, and rapidly, actually.
With those governors.
Right, and with those governors. You want the help from the governors.
And even with the county.
Yeah, they're in charge of those spaces and whether or not
Absolutely,
even
with the
within the
county.
state. And we're
they're opening, and they're opening rapidly if the governors want it. Oh, well, and also the county commissioners and anybody in the state. Like if it's in your area, you have control over that. Or actually, they're not opening at all.
all excited because recreating outdoors is safe and healthy.
Yeah.
The flip side is we're not
Trump feels vulnerable in large rooms.
yet ready to have all the people from other states and other
And
countries
that's why
coming
we're
in. So that's
collaborating
the
with
balance.
those local communities to ramp
So
up.
in all cases, you're working with
tell me a little
governors
bit
and
about-
and local towns.
That's
Absolutely.
great.
Are the parks a happy place?
Thank you very much, everybody.
How do you increase the confidence in the American public to go travel on America's airlines right
They have
now?
great confidence, and they have great confidence in us, and they have great confidence in the airlines. We've saved the airlines with $25 billion and another $25 billion. And
We didn't even ask for it, and we signed the CARES Act, went through on a veto-proof majority, and I only asked for $2 billion to work on this virus. They gave me $8 billion, and then when we went back for money, we asked for $225 million for small businesses. They insisted on $500 million.
we have airlines that are now in good shape. I mean, they're going to pick up with the fares and with the seats, but the airline industry is in good shape. We've been able to save the airline industry, which would have been devastating if that happened. So
you're going to give Obama credit for saving the auto industry then?
they're in good shape. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Press. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
If they pack up and walk out there. They pull it up. Oh, look at that. We get one of the Dutch angle walkouts. That's some lovely wainscoting. I need to get that rug. That's pretty sweet. He's dead, Jim. That's amazing. Okay, then, before we finish out today, oh, I know, the Antichrist, how dare I launch him on you. But this is the Time interview by Brian Bennett where they asked Jared about the election coming up, and this is where all that craziness came from. So it's not long. It's about 6 minutes. So I apologize for this. Just pretend you're watching like a screen test for Ex Machina before they decided it was better with females.
Success story. And the president yesterday said about testing for the virus that we've met the moment and we have prevailed.
Which is, of course, gibberish and nonsense.
Now, the U.S. has more COVID deaths than any other country in the world, more than...
Yeah, that's what we mean, prevailed. We are eliminating the humans from this planet.
80,000 deaths. How can this possibly be called a success story?
Well, if we had done nothing, there would be...
Thank you, Brian. So let's go back to where we started a couple months ago when I first got involved and asked to join the task force. We were seeing the invisible enemy, as the president calls it, starting to head towards the shore. A lot of it had come on in different ways. Thankfully, the president had shut down travel from China earlier.
No, he didn't.
Which gave us time to get more prepared.
40 other countries. You didn't get more prepared. That's all he did. All the pushback from the people in the office where he's like, everybody was telling me, no, you shouldn't do this. The reason they were saying, no, you shouldn't do this is because he was basically, I'm going to shut down the border and then go golfing. And they're like, no. You can't just shut the border for certain people and then pretend that infectious disease isn't coming in.
As prepared for a global pandemic as one can be.
No, that's not true at all. As prepared as one could be would include, I don't know, a pandemic response team.
Then when the president shut down travel from Europe, that's when we really started escalating all the different steps that we were taking here in America. At the time,
what steps are those?
Experts and the models predicted that there would be 1.6 to 2.2 million deaths here in America if we weren't able to do mitigation and
if we didn't do anything at all.
Do everything possible.
No. Not doing everything possible is very different from doing fuck all.
To get people the hospital capacity we needed. I don't want those comments to be taken in a way other than to contextualize how much our hearts break for the people.
We did a great job if you compare it to doing nothing. Got that? Cool.
People who have passed and their families. We know that it's a terrible tragedy, and one life, as the president said, lost is too many.
Except we need to get the economy open, and if a bunch of people have to die, or 1 out of 500,000 or 1 out of 1 million of our college students, or even if 100 kids are getting a bizarre illness in New York, we got to get the economy. We got to get it. People want to open up quickly. Our country isn't made to be closed. That's not what it's for, man. One death is too many unless it's in the way of the economy, and then boom, boom.
But faced with the magnitude of what this pandemic was and what it could have been, we've really worked hard. And now the next challenge is making...
What was that edit? What are these edits?
Making sure we have all the capacity in this country to safely reopen, as we have 30 million Americans who have lost...
Yeah, we don't. We don't have the capacity. Did you not just see the governors that I just played from today? Because this is yesterday. But this is from today, where the governors were saying they were still getting testing supplies from South Korea. And you were counting them amongst the tests that were happening in the United States as if the federal government should get credit for said tests.
Lost their jobs, and we want to get America back to work in a very safe and responsible manner.
We've finally gotten to a higher level of testing, and we've ramped up, but why have we been so slow to ramp up?
So again, slow is a relative term, right?
Yeah, it is. It is relative. It is relative. Slow and fast. Once you establish a speed point, for example, it is relative. Say relative to how South Korea set up their testing, for example, and ended up bending their curve faster. Or relative to Russia, which is non-existent, for example, or China's, which is immeasurable. They're going to have 1 million tests a day by June. So, yeah, slow is a relative term. And in relative terms, slow is generous.
There's never been a challenge like this before. We have a lot of people in the country. And, like I find with...
Did he just alien fart on all of us? Did he one cheek sneak on all of us, you guys?
Solving any problem,
so.
You need to do a lot of the steps sequentially, right? So the first steps that we took for testing was to develop the test. And then after that...
Why are we cutting the video of someone testing at Abbott Labs?
It was about getting the FDA to...
What are we seeing here? We're seeing someone take a sample out of a container and drip it into a smaller container to be put in a rack of what? How many are in there? Maybe 30 tests?
Work with the private sector and the commercial labs to get the high throughput testing capacity. Once we had that, the governors are really...
Why is this an ad? Time magazine?
The CEOs in the different states, and we had to work with all the governors to help them find where all their laboratories were.
You didn't help them find where all their other laboratories were. They knew where they were.
A lot of the governors I spoke to, they said, "Look, we've never done testing before," and again, that's
really, we've never done testing before.
Not usually in the description of being a governor is to figure out how to do large-scale disease testing in a state. Again, I think where we are right now is yesterday we passed 9.3 million, more than triple most countries in the world for the month of May.
Yeah, where are we on deaths with those countries as well? How many does South Korea have? 253?
Every state is on pace to do almost double per capita of what South Korea has done. So,
and yet, does every state have a death rate lower than South Korea's?
Again, I think as a country, we're going to look really good in May. We see testing.
We're going to look really good in May. Great.
As one of the keys to
looking back on May, you mean from June we're going to look good? Or we actually are currently?
Lock the opening, but
we're going to look good in May compared to where we are in June when more people are dead?
Not the only key. If you think about...
Like we're yearning back for, what, February?
About why we shut down.
Remember when February we only had 2 dead?
Down initially. A big part of it was the fear of lack of hospital capacity and ventilator capacity. So now going into the fall, the hope is that we have a ton of tests out there. We have a ton of masks and PPE, based on the work that the federal government's done. We have a much better understanding as a society for what measures we can take to limit the spread of the virus.
Yeah, you mean what the states are doing?
Whether it's wearing masks or washing your hands more or doing some forms of social distancing. And then finally, we have the hospital capacity to deal with.
Dr. Fauci, the country's top infectious disease doctor, he spoke to the Senate today and had a warning for states skipping over the checkpoints in the White House guidelines. He said there's a real risk that you will trigger an outbreak that you will not be able to control. What's your response to Fauci's warning here?
Look, I think that Dr. Fauci has shown himself to be incredibly knowledgeable, and he understands infectious disease incredibly well.
Not as much as your father-in-law, obviously.
I think you have a lot of policymakers like the president or the governors who were elected by the people in their states and in their country to make to take the input of the experts and professionals and then make decisions weighing a lot of different factors. And Dr. Fauci said that, a dozen times that I've been there, where he says, look, I'm just here to provide you, medical advice based on the virus.
And his medical advice is that if you open too early, you're going to kill people.
It's not necessarily to, you have to weigh that with all the other aspects that you have to weigh that with. There's risk to anything.
Yeah, like re-election.
But, the president, carries the burden of the 30 million Americans who have lost their jobs due to this historic effort to save.
No, JW, watch it. Besides, androids don't have any feelings.
Lives, and I think we've all come together. We've saved a lot of lives by our collective action. The country's really stepped up. It's been absolutely incredible.
How does President Trump win re-election with tens of thousands of Americans dying and millions out of work?
Yeah, so I think that there's a few parts. I think that right now we have to look at getting through the health crisis. Our focus has not been on the re-election.
Really? Have you seen his Twitter feed?
Time has not been spent on it.
Yeah, that's not your job. Ask Brad Pascal, who he threatened to sue for bad polling data.
I guess that was a different world, pre-pandemic.
No.
We've been working here 20 hours a day in the White House just to make sure that we can do everything possible to get the equipment that Americans need to save as many lives as possible.
And you work 20 hours a day to come to the conclusion that the state should get their own?
And we've really been working hard to do that. The president's been working hard to do that. But I do think that as we start to come out of the health crisis, we'll be in a situation where we need to safely reopen the economy and figure out how do we bring the economy back to where it was and maybe even better than it was before.
Is there any...
Yeah, well, you don't have all those... Hopefully all the people who died didn't have jobs.
Scenario including a second outbreak in the fall where the elections move past November 3rd?
That's too far in the future to tell. Nothing that I'm aware of.
This is the whole thing, like, should the elections get booted because of if we have a breakout?
Now, but again, our focus right now is just on getting the country.
Will you commit that the elections will happen on November 3rd?
It's not my decision to make, so I'm not sure I can commit one way or the other. But right now, that's the plan. And again, hopefully.
The plan. No, it's the constitutionally mandated law.
Hopefully, by the time we get to September, October, November, we've done enough work with testing and with all the different things we're trying.
What is that video, Time Magazine? What are you talking about? What is this? How is this germane to what's being spoken of? How does this? What does it have to do with anything?
To prevent a future outbreak of the magnitude that would make us shut down again.
What edit are you covering by playing this
video? I really
video?
believe that once America opens up, it'll be very hard for America to ever lock down again.
Is the president committed?
Why? What is that? How are we supposed to feel good about that? What do you mean? If we open up, it'll be harder for them to lock down? What?
To debating former Vice President Biden?
I think he's looking forward to it.
Uh-huh. Good Lord. Oh, more. Quit that. Crazy people. I'm switching over to here. That was the ABC audio going in there. Good Lord. Like, yeah. Why in the world would Time Magazine use the clips that they used to cover the edits that they did with their interview with Jared? And where is the full unexpurgated interview? Where are these uncut interviews? Why are they so heavily sliced up? The ABC one, this one for Time Magazine, is it? I mean, I'm assuming there's a full transcript, but honestly, yeah, that part drives me nuts. So, anyways, I wanted to check in with the chat room before we sign off or whatever. His batteries went up. Is he promoting revolting? Apparently. Yeah, Can't Stop Lying. It just looks like ad footage to me, this whole thing. I didn't see all that crap when I watched it live. No, this is on their website. This is what they put in. What happened to Lab Rats Elite Force? You have to ask Disney. Hal, if we want this country to get back on its feet, we're the one who will have to fix it because the government's no help. Dems, we need to fix this. Is true. Hey, TLK Knitting. Good to see you. Jerry said, absolutely, JW. Thanks for hanging in there with it. What's happening, Balin? How you doing? You're so funny, and I agree with it. You say, well, that's a lot, but I appreciate you being here, Austin. This is, there's tons of, I guess every day. Oh, look at that. Thanks, Christina. Let me be abundantly clear as this, so the judge in the Mike Flynn case, there is asking for friends of the court briefs to see if the Justice Department should be able to remove its, whether they could stop the prosecution going forward because he admitted to being guilty, and the Judge Sullivan appointed. Let me see if I can bring this up in here. I have to blow this up a little bit. I'll frame it in a little bit. He appointed a former judge to look into whether or not Flynn committed perjury, because the idea being is that if you let's say, first of all, he lied to the FBI, tried for lying to the FBI and other charges. What they're doing is, we'll only prosecute you for lying to the FBI because that's the smallest charge of the shit you did if you cooperate with us. And then we take your cooperation with us and we go to the judge and we go, hey, we're not going to prosecute him for these other 3 crimes because he was so helpful with all this other stuff. We're only going to prosecute him for this. He's going to plead guilty to that. That's our deal. And we give him a slap on the wrist and he can go home because we're going to use all the information that he gave us for bigger crimes. That's how you catch, in RICO. That's how you catch cartel leaders. That's how you catch the person who planned the murder. That's how you Charlie Manson your way through a prosecution. And this is, okay, order appointing amicus curiae. Upon consideration of the entire record in this case, it is hereby ordered that the court exercises its inherent authority to appoint the Honorable John Gleason, no relation, by the way, to Jackie Gleason.
I gotta barbecue your assy molasses!
As amicus curiae to present arguments in opposition to the government's motion to dismiss. Section of pieces of thing, what they've used as their justification. It is further ordered that amicus curiae shall address whether the court should issue the order to show cause why Mr. Flynn should not be held in criminal contempt for perjury pursuant to 18 U.S.C. Section 401, which is weirdly my scout troop number, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 42, which is oddly enough my Freemason Lodge number, the court's inherent authority, and any other applicable statutes, rules, or controlling law. I love low-end numerology when it happens. That's so funny. This judge is effectively asking for legal input from people as to why somebody who's already pled guilty, who already said this stuff, admitted that they committed a crime, admitted that they lied to the FBI, that they were acting as a foreign agent. The judge is saying, okay, you guys just want to drop this case all of a sudden. I'm going to need your reasoning, and I'm going to need somebody else besides you to make an argument. Thanks for the subscription. There you go. I'm going to need somebody to argue the pros and cons of you doing this. The judge is doing this because neither side is going to speak to the DOJ's motion. That's exactly right. In this particular situation, let's see. This is Judge John Gleason was the federal prosecutor who took down the Gambino and Colombo crime families, and he put away John Gotti. That's the guy he's bringing in. Overall, this is not surprising coming from this judge because he has a particularly bad attitude towards Mike Flynn because he witnessed all the crap that he did during the process, where he was like giving information and then he didn't give information, and the lies that he told, and the work he was doing for foreign governments. It's like all that. Bye, Bernie. Be well. I am indeed Ziggy. I forget who was saying, like, whatever reporter was talking in the background on that press gaggle that Trump just did, saying, do you think that the judge should recuse himself because of bias against Mike Flynn? You're not biased. Bias is not created by seeing evidence. Bias is exemplified in having the opinion regardless of the evidence. That's what bias is. That's, and Trump was always complaining about bias. Everybody's biased against him. There's so many bias. It's interesting that a bunch of hardline, long-term, lifelong Republicans all of a sudden are biased once they get a look at the phone call records and the transcripts of what he says to foreign leaders when he thinks no one's listening. So that, oy God. So that part of it, I think, sticks out. The thing that they're tweeting now about subpoena Obama and all that kind of stuff, I'm for it. Knock yourself out. Give it a try, because quite frankly, simply again, I look forward to the discovery process in all of this stuff. Thanks, Austin. That I think is the thing that stands out for me more than anything else, is that what they do not understand about any of this is that in this process, they are going to have to show both their argument, their evidence, and the other side is going to be able to ask for behind-the-scenes communications regarding this prosecution. So there you go. I was trying to see if there was another clip in here, but that's pretty much it for today, unless I want to get into another, like, hour-long piece of video. So, and we'll hold off on that till next time. I appreciate you guys dropping by. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program. Mega Worldwide is on Saturdays, 9 to 11 Pacific time. Don't forget, we're at hump days now, technically. And then I will be on Steph's show coming up, and I'll be on the Preston and Steve show in Philly next week as well, calling into their station. I'll post that, the timing on that as well. And then I'll be gaming later on with our brand new camera, working and flailing about and doing all that kind of stuff. So let's see. I'll roll back through there. Oh, thanks, Kalima. Don't practice law without a license. I don't intend to. But yeah, Manafort looked older. What was that? Paul Manafort looked older. That prison is no country club like some guys get. Well, the interesting thing about Manafort is everybody's saying, he didn't get out because he didn't serve. He should have served more of his time and all that kind of stuff. The predication that they're using is the fact that he is older. That's really it, more than anything else. Trump never wants any of his claims or garbage coming out of his mouth to be seen through this through to a solution, because they're all more powerful as open questions never to be answered. That's exactly right. I mean, that's why he says we'll see what happens. Because he wants other people to pick up the ball and do the dirty work for him. He thinks if he says that enough, the world will turn into David Pecker. That's, that's his goal. It's all a publicity hit for Fox, whole new cycle for them. Yeah, it gives them something else to talk about besides the number of dead. And thank you, Benny Loco, for being in there, and thanks everybody who was in the chat today. Thank you, Paris. Thank you, Latanya. Thank you, Templeton's Rats, for joining us today. And thanks to all the trolls. I appreciate you guys being in here and driving up my numbers. It means a lot. I love ignoring you and watching you flail about and be jerks and get all pouty when someone points out that the sun doesn't shine out of Trump's ass. And it's a joy for not just me, but the rest of the chat to see you flip out and flail around, hoping that one day Trump will be an eighth as good as Barack Obama was as a president, which, by the way, will never happen. So, but hope springs eternal, and good luck to you. And I want to appreciate you for watching and driving up my watch numbers and writing stuff in the chat and adding to my algorithm. It means a lot, and it's growing all the time, and I appreciate it. So there you go. And until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Everybody else, remember, reach out to somebody during this time that you haven't been in contact with recently, and spread the love. Check in on somebody outside your normal range of friendships. The acquaintance bubble that's beyond your normal circle of friends. Check in on somebody like that. Somebody that hasn't factored up in your phone in a long time. Try to go into your texts and scroll way down to somebody you're like, oh, I haven't actually touched base with them in quite a while or whatever, and reach out. Do that. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to chip away at making the system work better. And I thank you guys again who are patrons. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks to support the show. Thank you for the super chats, you guys. Appreciate you filling the little tip jar today. That was nice. Look at it. It's all filled up. I appreciate that. It means a lot. And twitch.tv/Hal Sparks for later on. All right, and I'll take. I'll see if I can post ahead of time and let you guys know precisely what game and when. But that'll it's always a tooth pull to know exactly when dinner's done. You know what I mean? That's the amorphous zone of the stuff. That being said, if you jump in the Discord and 1v1 on Fortnite, all right. We'll give that a try. If it's not too full up TLK knitting, that would be worthwhile. But I will see you guys later on. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Cheers.